Seed Folks by Paul Fleischman. Curtis. Deltoids. Awesome. Pecs. Check 'em out. Quads. Now playing on a body near you. Can't help being born with a body or living 3 doors down from Cap's gym. Can't stop people calling me Atlas or Sep. That's short for biceps, are us. Actually, I started the name, but that was before Letitia cut me loose. We had a real nice thing going. She was a few years older than me, always talking about having a family, living in the country, like her aunt's place in Michigan. I wasn't really listening too hard. I was 23. With this body, I had other hanging on me at the time. Some I just couldn't brush off. When Letitia found out, she slammed the door in my face so hard the paint cracked. You don't know what you got till it's gone. That was 5 years ago. I've caught up with her now. Done fooling around. She was looking for a husband, and now I'm looking for a wife. I moved back from Cincinnati in May and ran into her brother the first day. Said she's still single. Same third-floor apartment. But came up to her on the street. She turned her back. Wouldn't let me explain. Twice it happened. No chance for words. So I decided to give her some deeds instead. Straight across the street from the garden. I staked out a spot right by the sidewalk where she could look down and see it. Then I came home with 6 little tomato plants in plastic containers. She had a serious tomatoes. She'd put a monster slice on a piece of bread and call it a sandwich. She'd even bite into 'em, just like apples, always talking about eating 'em out of her aunt's garden when she was a kid and how she wanted to grow 'em someday. She probably thought I forgot all that. I planted 'em right there in front of her eyes to show her I hadn't, that I was waiting for her. I got the biggest beefsteak tomatoes. I could see in my mind, bright as traffic lights, flashing at her across the... I'd never grown anything before. I got it. Every day something new. The first flower bud, the first yellow flowers, then the tomatoes growing right behind them. This old man with no teeth, straw hat, showed me how to tie the plants up to stakes. Then someone else told me all their diseases. That got me worrying. What if I started wilting, or caught blood and died? That wasn't any message I'd want her to see. I started coming straight from work to check. I noticed every hole in every leaf. I picked off bugs, pulled out weeds, and I gave them lots of that fertilizer called tomato food, like sold me. From little green marbles, those tomatoes started. Then they started getting orange. Then they went to red. I kept looking up at Letitia's window, wanting her to sue. The only faces looking back were the drunks that hang her place. That liquor store's all boarded up, but they still suck bottles there anyway. They like to call me field slave and sharecropper. Ask how Massa's crops is doing. I could have banged their heads together and shut 'em up, but I didn't. That was part of the point of tomatoes. I was showing Letitia that just 'cause I got muscles don't mean I'm some jungle beast. I stopped working out and stopped going out with no shirt, no matter how hot it was. When some chicks would be walking by and see me there, they'd say, "Looking fine." I knew they meant me, but I'd point to my biggest tomato and say back, "Sure." My homies all laughed to see me out there. Started calling me tomato. I just smiled. Those tomatoes got big as billiard balls. One day when I checked them, my biggest one, the one I'd been watching closest, was gone. The next day, another one gone. It wasn't insects that took them. I was mad. They weren't all the way ripe yet. My plants were right there by the sidewalk. I put chicken wire around them, even on top, but people could still reach in if they tried. I couldn't guard them day and night. Then Royce showed up, just in time. You drop bread on the ground, and birds come out of nowhere. Same with that garden. People just appeared. People you didn't know were there. Royce was like that, except that he didn't want nobody knowing he was there. One of the gardeners saw that her pile of grass clippings was all spread out, had a sort of human print in it, been sleeping there nights and leaving early. One morning, he slept late. I'm the one who found him. He was 15, black, built big, looked like I did. His face was banged up. Said his father did it and threw him out. He didn't want to go back. I bought him breakfast, and we made us a deal. I found him a place closer to my tomatoes than by somebody's corn, so the cops wouldn't see him sacked out. I bought him a brand new sleeping bag. I gave him money for food that week. Then I picked up a pitchfork for $3 at a junk shop. His part of the deal was that if he saw or heard anyone mess with my tomatoes, he'd come at 'em full speed, holding the pitchfork. That was my best shot protecting him at night. For daytime, when Royce was gone, I painted a sign that said, Letitia's Tomatoes. It was big. I put it right there in front of the plants, face the sidewalk. If people know something belongs to a person instead of the city or the U.S. government, they're more likely to leave it be. When I'd pounded it in, I filled up my water can. Walking back, I looked up at her window. As still as a cat behind that lace curtain, there was a face, staring down the sign.